Welcome back, fellow soldiers, to this week's Developers Briefing, and that is Developers Briefing number 94 already. As you may have noticed, there was some breaks with the Developers Briefing. I think the last one I did was 91. I went on holiday and boom, we're already at 94. So that's the reason why I'm going to have a talk about the other Developers Briefings that I've missed in the meantime, two here on the Developers Briefing number 94. So we're gonna go chronologically from 92 up then to 94. And even though I'm going to do this Developers Briefing a little bit more compact, so to say, to have it just well structured and so that we have a good overview on the whole developers briefings, since there are several that we're gonna have to talk about. So that's why I'm gonna keep them a bit compact, but still in a good version or form for you guys to enjoy. And I can promise you there is a lot of very cool stuff to come that I've missed in the last few weeks where I was on holiday, and now that I'm reading it on Steam. So yeah, let's dive right into it and see what I've missed. As you probably remember, in Developers Briefing number 91, we had to talk about the upcoming or the newly released roadmap of Hell Let Loose. That was awesome and a nice thing to have, so we finally see what the developers are planning on releasing and when they are planning on releasing. And we also had the submission going on for the Wilhelm Scream competition. You probably remember that. You could send them your Wilhelm screams, your dying screams, your being close to death or being hit by a bullet scream, and they're probably going to implement that into the game if it fits the whole atmosphere. And that was still going on back when Developers Briefing number 92 dropped, and they also included some examples of very nice Wilhelm screams that you have to check out. Also check out the subreddit for that. That was pretty cool. Now in Developers Briefing number 92, they had a talk about the coming fix for the still ongoing crashes that some people are experiencing when playing. That is still a huge topic, or was a huge topic among the community. And they also introduced some new uniforms for the tanker crew. And if you look at the screen now, you can see some screenshots I took out of the Developers Briefing where you'll see what they worked on and how the tanker crew will probably look like in the future after some updates. And if I personally look at those uniforms, I very much like them. I don't think that the tanker crew has to have a military uniform. I think a uniform like this that is more practical for the tanker crew, that just shows that they are working in a machine, just is more contributing to the atmosphere. I'm not sure if it's historically accurate, but I'm pretty sure the developers team is also researching on that one, since they always want to keep things historically accurate. Moving on between Devs Briefing number 92 and 93, there was a patch that dropped, and that was patch number 13. And I think we have to talk about that one for a short time. I'm not sure if you have read it, so I'm going to have a little talk about that one, because this one should finally solve, or should have finally solved, the physics crash. And as you probably know, I've already reported that in another Developers Briefing. The crashes happened every time some limbs flew through the air and then met mid-air, and then the game crashed. So if you were throwing a grenade or just any explosives, you killed enemies and their limbs were flying around. That was the reason for the physics crash. And for how the developers were finally able to solve that one, I'm going to read to you a small section that they put into the patch notes number 13. For those that didn't know, the physics crash could occur when body parts from two different dismembered bodies collided. Now, the easiest thing to spot, but thanks to feedback such as it occurred during a bombing run or I threw a grenade and then my game crashed, the team were able to narrow things down, identify the problem and fix it. Also, yes, this meant we spent copious amounts of time blowing each other up with tanks, grenades and bombing runs. We're confident that the above are fixed and shouldn't cause you any further issues. However, we will be watching closely to ensure the patch is working as intended. Now, since I was on holiday, I don't know how that patch implemented into the game and if the problem is solved. Let me know in the comments down below. If you hear this, let me know if your crash problems are finally fixed after that patch number 13. Moving on and coming to the following developers briefing, and that was developers briefing number 93. That included some information about the upcoming update number 8 and also some additions to the tankers. And that is kind of directly tying into the uniform customization stuff that we just talked about with the tankers. But in this one, they are adding a wrench tool to the tanker class, so it will be able for tankers to repair their tanks themselves. And I think that's a very good addition to the game, since there was barely a time when an engineer was around to repair your tank. There were times, certainly, where that functioned, and then it functioned very well. There was team play and always someone around that could repair a tank, and that would decide how the game turned out. But let's be honest, most of the time it doesn't work, or the engineer or the repair guy is just on the other side of the map. So yeah, this one, wrench tool for the tankers, very nice addition. I'm very much looking forward to that one. And if you have listened closely, you've realized that I said some information about update 8, and yes, there is some information about update number 8, or there was some information in that developers briefing where the devs said the following about update number 8. Update number 8 may as well be called the nuts and bolts update, as so many seemingly peripheral areas of the game are being overhauled in a way that will allow us to lift the total quality as well as expand functionality and the tactical thought needed to engage with each mechanic. In update 8, we are decoupling the repair function from the wrench and have created a unique tool to fulfill this: the trusty field blow torches, carried by the engineers of all forces. It will act much like the wrench, but allows us to be more specific in the function of the wrench, which will now act as a planning and placement tool, while also giving many more loadouts specific utility. And here is exactly where I realized that I fucked up with giving you information, and that is mainly because of my English. So you've probably realized we've already had a wrench tool with the engineer to repair, and yes, I wasn't thinking that much when I told you this. This is not post-production, this is in production, so I'm just gonna record this too. As you can obviously see, the developers are not adding another wrench, they are adding a blowtorch for repairs. That will look very cool. They will add a repair tool, the blowtorch, I think, to the tanker crews. That is true, but of course they are not adding another wrench tool. That is a fault due to my English understanding, and also because I'm recording this just after waking up. Probably it's because of that one. Yeah. Now, let's move on to the developers briefing number 94. That's probably the main reason why you've clicked on that video. And I think that's going to be a quite interesting one. Let me show you why. The Developers Briefing 94 is about Satchel Charges. For the guys that aren't English teachers and don't know what Satchel Charges are, I didn't know too. They're just big explosive boxes. Yeah, a big bomb, let's say. And as you can see on the pictures, they come either as a box or in a bag. Yeah. And these will be added to the engineer class. And now you probably ask yourself, for what am I going to use that one? Why didn't they just give me more grenades? And that is, yes, indeed, a very good question. Now, let me show you what the developers are saying about the Satchel Charges. The Satchel Charges are, as I said, just very, very big bombs. 3 kilograms of explosive material, where you can set a timer, and that timer has length of 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 120 seconds before it goes off. And yes, this isn't really the best thing to throw if you are in a trench fight, of course. Now, the question why you should use a satchel charge still remains, and I've also asked this question myself. Why would I use that one, since the terrain is not destructible like in Battlefield 1? And here's what the developers are saying about that one. The best way to think of satchel charges is as an enormously powerful timed charge. It can be used to destroy vehicles, though the timed nature of the charge and relatively long placement time will make it a challenge to use in this way. It can also be used to clear buildings, strong points or fortified locations of infantry. The primary risk and reward is that only one can be carried by an engineer at a time, as well as the longer placement time, balanced against a devastating explosion. Bear in mind that you'll need to communicate the placement of the charges so that your team around you are aware of the imminent explosion. Yeah, that's probably for the best. In addition to its raw destructive power against foes on the battlefield, engineers will be receiving an overhaul for all deployables. In the future, we'll also be revising the way specific sectors are captured in offensive mode. And here is where it gets interesting, guys, so listen closely. Part of this will be the introduction of objectives that need to be destroyed in order for the sector to be won. Satchel charges are being introduced now to facilitate that in the future. Very interesting little detail, and that was exactly what I was thinking about when I heard that there will be bigger explosive material. Aren't there any objects that we can destroy with that? And that will probably be added in the future in the offensive game mode, like a rush game mode in Battlefield, if you are familiar with that one. What I still miss, though, from this developer's briefing on how we could use the satchel charges is to destroy enemy AT guns or enemy nodes and stuff like that, since that was quite undestroyable by normal infantry. I think that would be a good thing if the engineer was able to set a satchel charge to the enemy AT gun just to blow it up and destroy it for good. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the upcoming satchel charges that will be able to use in Hell Let Loose. And with that, I'm going to round up this week's and some of the older developers briefings. I hope you enjoyed the content I provided, even though that video was a bit longer than usual. If you did so, please subscribe to the channel and like the video if you did so. And as always, I'm pretty sure we're gonna see each other on the battlefield.